And a good Sunday morning to you. I'm Andrea Oliver. So excited to invite you to be a part of this edition of Polk County Today. Now, it might be a millennial term whose origins might not be entirely selfless. However, considering the legacy you leave behind does not have to be self-absorbing. It doesn't have to be a concept that is bad. And as my guests will discuss today, when it comes to the impact and influence you have on others, it can be something that is quite good and quite edifying. Our very own executive coach, Emily Rogers, is back in studio, a business consultant who advises individuals and organizations. Her commitment to excellence is unparalleled and inspiring leaders and teams to achieve their highest potential. Emily Rogers, welcome back to Polk County Today.
Good morning, Andrea. It's wonderful to be here with you and your listeners.
I know that you have been so busy. We've been trying to kind of get this program going here for several months, I would say.
Yes.
Several months. And it's good to have you in studio. Give me a little bit of an update as to what you've been up to before we jump into our topic today.
Sure. So it's been an exciting and fulfilling year doing the work that I love to do with my clients, with individuals and teams. And I've traveled a bit and stayed pretty close to home this summer.
Nice.
So it's been kind of a nice, low-key summer for me and a great time to be getting back in the studio and catching up with you today.
Now, I know that as we journey along, there are buzzwords, and at different periods, there are terms that we use that connotes where we might be at any given time or period in time. I'm excited about the concept of leadership legacy because I think we live in a time when social media has allowed everybody to have a voice. And I don't necessarily know that some of the voices that are out there are worth listening to. So I think it bears asking, what legacy are you leaving, and what kind of leader are you purporting to be? So when we talk about leadership legacy, Emily Rogers, what are we looking at?
So what I like to say is that every day, in whatever role we play as leaders, we're leaving a legacy. Whether we realize it or not, we're writing that story. And so the idea of legacy leadership for me is an opportunity to help leaders get more intentional about how they want to lead today, how they can be more effective today as leaders, and what is the legacy that they want to create tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
We've talked about leadership, and so I'm going to have you define again for us what would connote an effective leader.
There's 5 principles typically that I talk about as it relates to highly effective leaders that are typically thriving in their roles. They can relate well to others. That requires a good degree of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, as we've talked about before. They're authentic and act with high integrity. They have a world view, a big picture view, but they can also get down in the details and roll up their sleeves. And lastly, they achieve the impact that they're trying to create, which is what legacy is all about. Is what is the impact we're trying to create through the roles we play as leaders on a day-to-day basis. And it's cumulative.
Let me ask you this, because a principle is a principle. It's why 2 + 2 = 4. And so one has to then ask, is this idea driven by where you are and the type of team or business you might be leading, or is it self-standing and it doesn't matter who you're leading, you can be effective and have and leave a positive legacy?
I'm glad you used the word principles, because that's one I like to use when I talk about this topic. So your legacy is truly formed by your guiding principles. And that is who you are as a person. inside and out. And so it's about how people experience you as a leader, whether it's a business leader, a community leader, a volunteer in a church or in a nonprofit. It's about how people experience you through the guiding principles that you display through your actions and your intentions every day.
Have you found, Emily, as a leadership coach, have you found that people, leaders, are aware of how they're coming across? Or do you think more than likely, or what you've found is that people generally have an idea who they are, and it is so far removed from how people see them?
So I mentioned the importance of self-awareness a few minutes ago. So this is what you're asking about.
Yes.
And some leaders are highly aware of the ripple effects that they create, the wake that they leave behind, as I like to say. And some have blind spots. And many of us do have blind spots. It's a matter of degree of how wide those blind spots are.
Is it because we don't want to see?
Sometimes, and sometimes we just haven't reflected enough or haven't asked. And so I encourage leaders to think about today, if they were to describe their legacy today in real time, what would that be? And to even ask colleagues and trusted advisors, what is the real impact I'm having? When am I showing up at my highest and my best? And what is the legacy I'm leaving behind today? And that is really insightful, and that creates more self-awareness for leaders.
Emily Rogers is our guest today. The interesting topic of leadership legacy is what we're exploring. Emily is an executive coach, and I'm going to let you get some information before we get out of here, how you might get a hold of this lady, how she might come and talk with your group, your team. It'll be absolutely beneficial. I hear something that I know most everyone would say. I would love to be effective. I would love to leave a positive legacy. But I don't know that everyone is. You talk about self-awareness, but I think it's even more than that sometimes. I think it's a fear of what one might hear. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know how to lessen the blow, perhaps, as to what you might hear when you ask, is there a way to go about seeking that information and bracing yourself almost to hear what is necessary so that you can really be the most positive, the most effective leader you can be?
Sure, that's a great question. So as you embark on this journey, it can be daunting and scary, right? And we can have all sorts of self-doubt about the role that we're playing, the impact we're really having, is it really working? And so the more, the more information you can gather, and the more willing you are to be with that information in a really honest way and stay curious about it.
Yes.
I think the greater opportunity a leader has to bridge any of those awareness gaps that they may have, and to adjust and to take small steps, small adjustments.
Yes.
Every day to get a little closer to leaving behind that legacy that one really wants to lead.
I think there is a confusion between productivity and effectiveness. Mm-hmm. And I think, and this is based on even personal, having worked for people who we got the job done, but none of us liked the leaders. We just did it because either we were afraid we're going to lose our job, we're going to afraid, some kind of repercussion.
Yeah.
I don't consider that effective leadership.
It's not, because 20 years from now, people aren't going to remember the things that we accomplished, but they will remember how we made them feel in the process of moving things forward.
Your critic might say, Emily, that we're moving too much into a touchy-feely world, and everything is about feelings and how I feel, and if I don't feel it. How would you respond to that, especially in light of this subject matter?
Sure. Well, legacy-minded leaders are clear about their purpose, their intention, and the results that they want to achieve. So there's no doubt about that. And they're also clear about how they're going to go about getting that done in collaboration with others and through others and with others. And so that's the balance in my mind. There's always a destination in a legacy leader's mind. And the path to getting there is what tells the story.
So then I have to ask you, how important then is empathy?
Very, very important. Yeah. Because as you're going about all this doing, it's really important to notice how others are feeling and reacting to that.
A key point I can imagine in all of this is to have checks and balances along the way. Because I think sometimes we approach leadership in a particular way, and we have to be willing to look, well, this might not be the most effective. This might not be achieving the goal. Do we have some checks and balances that we can maybe look at to go, this is going to be a more effective path, and in essence, we're going to lend more to the legacy we leave than some other type of behavior?
Just like I encourage my clients to write a purpose statement, I encourage my clients to write what I call a legacy manifesto. And that becomes the guidepost. And yes, as we go through life and our work, we get distracted, we get derailed. But that manifesto that we actually put in writing and make concrete for us, and in some cases make visible to others, our intentions for how we want to be remembered as leaders, that becomes the guidepost. That's something to go back to. And as you and I have talked before, I always encourage my clients to have allies in the process.
Yes.
People that will hold you accountable, that'll, give you a nudge when you need a nudge, and will honestly share how they're feeling about your impact.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
So, Emily Rogers, what is the legacy you're hoping to leave as a leader?
So I defined my purpose 10 years ago, and that was to create growth in myself and others, and to do so in very purposeful and balanced ways. So in the actions that I take as a coach and a trainer and a facilitator, I get to see almost daily the impact of my actions around my purpose on the clients that I serve and the role that I play in the community. And so when I see someone thriving, when I see someone growing, when I see someone achieving more, having more satisfaction, having more fulfilling relationships, that's telling my story.
Yes.
And there's nothing more fulfilling to me than to see the impact and to see the ripple effects that has in businesses and organizations and communities and families.
Absolutely. You're able to measure that, as you say, as you go along, because you're seeing that impact. You leave a presentation, you leave a company, you've spent some time working with a group, you're able to see the impact almost immediately. For those who are not necessarily able to have that visible impact, how do they know if they're hitting the mark?
I don't always get it immediately. Okay. Sometimes it circles back around much later in a conversation or in a reconnect with someone. So it's not always immediate.
Yes.
But I believe that the signs are there. And so we have to look for the signs. And if we're clear on what we're wanting to leave behind and the impact that we're wanting to create, those ripple effects, then I believe it's more likely that we see it. And it may not be immediate. But it's there.
If you were to make a statement about what leadership legacy, what exactly it will do and what exactly it will achieve among those who choose to be intentional, and what would that statement be?
Yeah. So a legacy-minded leader becomes a more effective leader today because they make conscious choices about priorities, and they also create the impact tomorrow that they want to have in the world.
I could not have said that better. Emily Rogers, so good having you in studio. Always such a joy. I'm reminded that folks might want to get a hold of you, and we said we'd give that information. So if you would quickly share where we might get a hold of you.
Sure, you can connect with me on my website at emilyrogers.com. Thanks, Andrea.
And we have that information here. So happy to share it. And Emily, so good to have you in studio. And until next time.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, good. We'll talk soon.